Hey everyone, my name is Angela Urbina. I wanted to give you some background on who I am and why I'm making this video. I graduated from UNC Charlotte with a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education. I was also selected as the Student Teacher of the Year for UNC Charlotte for the year 2016-2017. I was asked to speak at the edTPA conference in Raleigh, which is where I was able to make some really good relationships with various professors and figureheads from universities and colleges across the state of North Carolina. And the reason they were holding this conference is to get these professors and these university figureheads kind of informed about the edTPA project and why it's effective. So UNC Charlotte has been using this edTPA project as a way to measure how much their elementary education and their education candidates have been able to learn over the course of those 4 years of preparation. And so now the edTPA project is gaining more recognition from other universities and colleges in the state and even in the nation. So this conference was held to kind of give more information and insight to these prospective professors and figureheads that are going to hopefully implement this project within their universities. So since UNC Charlotte has been involved in this, and they've been implementing this project as kind of a capstone project for graduating seniors who are education candidates, they were kind of asked to be sort of like they were asked to sort of lead the way and be one of the universities that explains to other people how they've been able to do this successfully. So because I was a candidate from UNCC that completed edTPA successfully, and they knew that they could rely on me as a good role model for others, I was chosen and asked to speak at the edTPA conference. And that's where I was able to meet and connect with Dr. Ellis from Wingate University, and she gave me the idea to make this video about my edTPA experience. I want to talk about 5 specific focused topics. I'm going to jump right into it. So topic number 1 is resources. I really want to iterate to you that the most important resource for you to use throughout this process is the edTPA handbook. I know it sounds simple, it sounds a little bit silly, but the edTPA handbook is your lifesaver. Please make sure that you have a copy of the edTPA handbook on hand at all times, from start to finish. And as you go through this process, use the handbook. Really make sure you read through it. Every detail counts. I know for a fact from my experience that if I had not read and reread the handbook many times, I would have missed very critical information that needed to be included in my project, or specific requirements that needed to be a part of it, or a certain number of students that has to be included in your small group instruction. Things like that that I would have just missed had I not really read through the handbook thoroughly and read it through many times. So the next resource that I'm going to talk about is your cooperating teacher. Now, I know that everybody's cooperating teacher is, not held equally. Everybody has different experiences with their cooperating teachers. I know from my experience that my cooperating teacher and I had a great relationship. I was really grateful that I was able to have that relationship with her, because I was able to use her as one of my main go-to resources while I was going through this process. She helped me brainstorm. She helped me talk through ideas, suggested, different assessments, ideas that I could use throughout the project. So if, hopefully you have that relationship. If you don't, I'm sure there's other seasoned teachers within that school placement that you're in. So put yourself out there. Put your best foot forward and ask for help. These teachers have been in the business, some of them for many, many years. Some of them have done similar things, including like their national board certification, which includes similar requirements, which is actually another reason why I think this edTPA project is pretty effective in preparing you. But use your cooperating teacher as a resource. She's done her job probably for many years. If not, she's done it for at least more than you have, and she'll hopefully, or he will hopefully be someone you can go to, even if you're stressed and you just need a place to feel comfortable, a place to feel like you can de-stress and vent what's going on. And they probably get it. They're going to understand what you're going through, which is great to have, kind of that comfort and that support as you're going through the process. So definitely reach out to them. Another resource that I'm going to talk about is the fact that I was able to have a website that I was able to go to that had all different kinds of resources within it, including examples from previous students who had completed the edTPA project successfully. I was able to go through to those examples and click on those links whenever I felt like I needed, additional help, or just I needed, to kind of get my mind refocused, or I needed a question answered. A lot of times, previous students who have done it successfully were able to answer those questions quicker than maybe a professor could even answer those questions. So definitely, if there is the opportunity for you to go to a certain website where there's links that connect you to examples from previous students, or maybe videos from previous students, or even professors who are explaining things that can help you, definitely use that as a tool. I know from my experience, I was able to go to that website and click on links of even videos of professors explaining how to set up the video portion for task 2, and what's the best angle, and how many takes I should have in my video portion, and how many cameras I should include, things like that. It was very helpful for me. So if your university or college provides a website where you can go and click on different links that have, examples and things like that, make sure you use that. Go ahead and have a quick link, like a bookmark on your computer, so that you can just click on that, make it easy for yourself, make it accessible. Another resource that I was going to talk about is a planning template. If your college or university does not provide a planning template, meaning a template that allows for every single task to be laid out just in a more brainstorming, informal way, then create one yourself. Once you've read through the handbook, you should know what's expected and how many sections there are. So just go ahead and either create a template or find one that's already been created by a previous student or a professor. Use that template to brainstorm, to get out all of your ideas and to try things. And then you'll be able to see where are the gaps that you need to fill, and what are things that maybe need to be improved or altered, or just taken out completely and replaced with something else. It's a great way for you to get your thoughts on a page before you even do the project. I know I was able to use my planning template for each task, and then know where to go from there, what needed to be improved, what needed to be taken out, whatever it was. Finally, make sure that if you have the opportunity to go to a kind of workshop session where professors and peers get to meet together and talk about their experiences so far, and you guys will get to hopefully kind of get some advice from your professors or advice from your peers, make sure you go to those sessions if they're offered. I know that was a way for me to step away from the classroom, a way for me to go to campus, separate myself from the kind of daily lesson planning world, and just focus on edTPA for 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours at a time. And those were held maybe every other week or so for me. But even if that's not how frequently they're held for you, or if it's not offered at all, maybe get together with some peers. Reach out to your peers and see if you guys can get together and work in a group setting to bounce ideas off of each other, to peer edit, to revise together. Just to have, again, that extra support as you're going through the process. Topic number 2, which is time management. This is key to having a successful experience with edTPA. In my experience, I was able to sit down at the very beginning of the semester with my cooperating teacher and with my advisor. And we were able to set a timeline before I even started the edTPA project. And what I mean by setting a timeline is you want to go ahead and figure out what task you're going to complete first. If you decide to complete task 4, the math section first, then you're going to want to plan with your advisor and your cooperating teacher that you'll be picking up or teaching math first. That way you're sequencing which task you're doing and what subject you're teaching so that they coincide, so that they correlate with one another. Also, keep up with that timeline. Don't get away from it. Make sure you have that timeline, really well organized, maybe in a binder so that it's easily accessible to you, something that you look at almost every day as you're in your school placement, as you're planning lessons. Make that a part of your daily routine to check in with that timeline and make sure that you're keeping up with it. I know for a fact that there were times when I got a little bit behind, and in that case, I made sure that I actually set the timeline, the due date for myself, a week before the submission date, meaning that week of, extra time that I had was there as a cushion in case I did get behind. So that's really what my advice is for the timeline. Topic number 3 is some tips and tricks that I want to share with you. All right, so tip number 1 is once you're getting towards that submission date, make sure you upload everything early. And I mean everything. Whether it's your video clips, your commentary, your student assessments, pictures of your anchor charts, whatever it is, make sure you're uploading everything early before you get to that submission date. The reason being is because I know many of my peers ended up submitting late and had to then go back and redo portions or resubmit, which takes a lot longer than just doing it right the first time. So make sure that you plan ahead of time and know exactly which date you're going to go ahead and start uploading all of your materials. I would put that in your timeline, on your calendar. Make sure it's in your calendar so you know you can work towards that. Upload early so that you don't have to submit late. Make sure that you read that handbook and the section specifically that talks about file sizes and file formats. It also specifically states the different parts that you have to have for each task. So, for example, in task 4, I know I had to upload parts A through G or H. And so I had to make sure I knew exactly what parts of task 4 went in part A, part B, part C. And the handbook will guide you through that. So make sure you go and reread that section before you submit so you know what needs to be uploaded, how it needs to be uploaded, and how it needs to be separated into different parts. You want to make sure before you kind of plan out your literacy lesson segment that you create or design your assessment first. Even when you're doing task 4 for your math section, create or design that assessment first. I know that a lot of times in the education world, we tend to teach to the assessment, and sometimes that can be controversial and looked down upon. But in this case, for this particular project, you're going to want to teach to the assessment. And in order to do so, you're going to have to create or design that assessment early. You have to do that part first, because if you wait to create or design that assessment, you're going to be teaching to something that you haven't even developed yet. So make sure you know what you're going to be assessing your students on before you even plan your lessons. That way, your lessons are teaching directly to what that assessment will include. My final tip and trick is be consistent in your commentary sections. As you're typing these things up, I know it can become mundane and tedious, but take the time to go back and double check yourself. Make sure it makes sense. Read through it. I know it takes a lot of time, but read to make sure that it's fluid, that it flows. Make sure that you were consistent, meaning that you're not going on different tangents. I know that I can do that sometimes in my writing, so it's important we go back and self-evaluate to see if there were any tangents or any areas where it didn't flow well with what we were trying to get across. Also, Be concise. Don't go overboard with the words, because there is a limit. There's a limit on how much text you can have. There's a limit on how many page numbers you can have in your commentary sections. So just be mindful of that. I know in my experience, as I was completing even the practice round for edTPA, which was really helpful, by the way, because I did learn and I realized that typing too much and being overly explanatory then was biting me in the butt at the end, because I had to delete some of the things that I had already typed up, and that took a lot of time to then go back and edit. So make sure you're being consistent, be concise, and I will say one other thing. It is okay, and actually, honestly, it's encouraged to be a little bit repetitive with some of the things that you're talking about in your commentary, meaning that when you have a certain approach to your lesson, repeat that approach, explain that approach more than once. Use the same language. The language in this is so important. If you use language like conceptual understanding in your math commentary, then use that same language throughout. Try not to interchange those terms. Go ahead and be repetitive, because Pearson wants you to be a little bit repetitive, especially when it comes to your language and your commentary. They want to see, do you really know what you're talking about? Are you confident in what you're talking about, or do you kind of need to be wishy-washy? So make sure you're being confident and being strong in your words and in your language as you're completing that commentary section. Topic number 4, I want to talk about applicability. This project, whether you like it or not, I know it's time consuming, I know it's not easy. However, I will say that this project is applicable to the real world of teaching. From my experience, I've already been teaching for a little while, and I've also completed this project. I know that it might not seem like it now, but when you get to start teaching in your own classroom, you will realize that some of the tasks and some of the skills and strategies that you're using in this project, you'll find you're using every day in your classroom as a teacher, and even when you're in planning meetings with your team. And so as an example of this, I'm going to explain that when I was completing my edTPA project, I realized that using data to inform my teaching is so important. It's one of the most important parts of planning for your lessons and planning for your instruction. So when I was completing the edTPA project for the task 3 section, where it's all about assessment and assessment results and how you use those assessment results to improve student learning, I was able to create a table that included the data from my lesson in terms of what students scored on their assessment. And when I went back and read through that data, I realized that, hey, these kids, certain kids were popping out as kids that were struggling more than I had expected them to. And that way I was able to target those students and pull them for additional intervention and additional support, and then use that data to inform even that small group work that I did with them. So using data as a resource for me as a teacher to kind of inform my teaching and inform my instruction is something that I used for edTPA, but something that I also realize that I use every day as a teacher. When I'm planning for lessons, I'm looking at students' test scores. I'm looking at students' growth in certain subject areas to see where do they need help, where are there still gaps at, where do they need to be, supported more. And so I was able to acquire that skill, that strategy, when I was completing edTPA, and now it's something that I use every single day as a teacher. So please know that this project is applicable, whether it seems like it or not. Finally, we're going to talk about topic number 5, which is my takeaway from the Pearson edTPA project. And that is that this project is not about perfection. Please know that I honestly think, and Pearson seems to me not to expect perfection from you. They didn't expect perfection from me. How do I know that? Because I got a decent score and I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes in the planning process. I made mistakes in the commentary sections. I made mistakes when I was filming my videos. I made mistakes probably in the submission process too. I think what Pearson wants us to take away from this opportunity is that it's okay to make mistakes. We should realize as teachers that our passion and that raw ability to just get in the classroom and do what we know how to do, whether it's perfect or not, is something that is very special to our field. And mistakes are good. They teach us things. We can learn lessons from them. So I think what my biggest takeaway is that it's okay to be imperfect as long as we learn from that and then improve and grow from it afterwards. When you're in your commentary sections typing things up and talking about how you might improve or what you could do differently, be sure to notate that you didn't do a perfect job and that that's okay, but that if you were given the chance to do it all over again, here's some things that you would do differently. So that's all I have for you guys right now. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope that this helps you and gives you some insight about the edTPA project. I do plan to make some more videos that are related to edTPA and other teaching topics. So if you liked this video, please like this video on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you have any questions or any specific topics that you'd like me to make videos about. I'll see you in the next one.